So someone posted on Twitter and said, I didn't know how much the Midwest slash South really embraced the idea of being American until I was older. Growing up in NYC slash Philly, it felt more like we put our Caribbean roots over everything. The music, the flags, the way we talked. Interesting to me. I'm going to address this because, like, what? Now, I don't know about Philly, but I know that New York has a very large black immigrant population, right? So, that being said, I understand that kids have a very small worldview. They think that the entire world is their backyard. So, if you're a Caribbean child growing up in NYC, like this person was, of course you're going to think that you have the black American experience, that every black person in America is Caribbean because that's what the people around you are. You see all these Caribbean flags and so and so and so and yada yada yada, right? So I wouldn't even be mad if this person just mentioned this from the perspective of, childhood. Oh, when I was a kid, I really didn't know, right? But the fact that this person is grown talking about that's interesting to me. What is interesting about black Americans embracing being American the same way that you embrace being Caribbean? In fact, it makes more sense for black Americans because we in our home country, right? We are black Americans in America. You're a Caribbean in America, right? You're not even in your homeland and you embrace your flag and your music and this, that, that, right? Why wouldn't I embrace those things, period? But then especially consider the fact that I'm in my homeland. Like, what? The fact that this person said, we put our Caribbean roots over everything. Yeah, so this is interesting to me that the Midwest and South really embraced the idea of being American, right? It's like they equated black Americans to Caribbeans, right? It's like they were saying that the black Americans in the Midwest and South are actually Caribbeans, and they think it's interesting that we embrace being American in a way that they don't, right? Instead of actually acknowledging the fact that black Americans are Americans. So, duh, we embrace being American. The same way you're Caribbean, duh, you embrace being Caribbean. Again, you don't even live in your homeland and you embrace being Caribbean. But you confused by somebody who does live in their homeland, embracing their culture. What? That's like going to China and saying, wow, I didn't know how much Chinese people really embrace the idea of being Chinese until I was older. That's stupid as fuck. Now, again, like I said, I understand that kids have a small worldview. So, of course, when you were growing up, you were young. That would make sense, right? But the fact that your big grown ass had the audacity to get on Twitter at your elderly age and post this makes absolutely no sense. I see this very odd thing where black immigrants are constantly trying to pretend that black Americans are the same as them in America. Like, you'll often see immigrants, period, not just black immigrants, right? Say that America was built by immigrants. And I'm always confused by this because, like, huh? Like, maybe my people is not immigrants. What are you saying, right? And people will try to say, oh, well, black Americans were brought here from somewhere else, so that technically makes them immigrants, even if it was forced immigration, right? But they never apply that logic to any other country, right? They never say, oh, black Jamaicans are immigrants to Jamaica because they were brought there from somewhere else. Therefore, Jamaica was built by immigrants. Nobody says that dumb shit, right? Nobody tries to pretend that black Jamaicans were immigrants in Jamaica. No, absolutely not. No. People acknowledge that black Jamaicans are Jamaican. They not no damn immigrants, right? But people will turn around and constantly try to pretend that black Americans are not American. Like, what are you talking about? You think it's interesting that black Americans claim being American? Yo ass claim being Caribbean. You're just as much Caribbean as I am American. And you don't think it's interesting that you claim being Caribbean. Mind you, your ass not even in the Caribbean, right? Right? You don't think that's interesting at all. But somehow me claiming who I am and I'm in my damn homeland, that's interesting to you? Like, how does that make sense? This reminds me of a video that I just made, right? And I'll put the link to it up here when I think of the name of it, right? Where this Nigerian guy was talking about, oh, black Americans choosing to be American under this administration is like a choice, right? And I replied to him, I was like, I don't care who is in office. It could be Donald Trump, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, whoever, baby, like George W. Bush, whoever. I'm still American. That's like me telling you, you claiming to be Nigerian based off who is in the Nigerian administration is a choice. You're Nigerian, period. Like, what are you saying, right? So then he got to talking about, oh, well, that's different because black Americans are oppressed in America. Like, y'all was enslaved. Look at the history, so and so and so. And I said, well, everybody in the Caribbean was enslaved, and you don't have any issue with them claiming to be Caribbean. So what's your problem with me claiming to be American despite, slavery, right? And then this guy said, oh, well, y'all the minority in America. When people think of America, they think of white people. I said, there are places in the Caribbean where black people are the minority, right? Like in Trinidad, it's half Indian. Guyana's half Indian. You know what I'm saying? Places like the Dominican Republic is a bunch of mestizos and stuff. But black people from those places still claim those places. And you don't have nothing to say to them, right? So what's the actual issue here, right? So he beat around the bush for the entire conversation. And then finally he said, well, America's a first world country. So I said, okay, so you pretended that the issue was about black Americans having been enslaved or being the minority in America or this or that or so and so and so. But your actual issue is simply with the fact that black Americans were born into a first world country and you were not, right? And I'm saying this because I do feel like some black immigrants have some animosity towards black Americans for that reason. This tweet made me think of that because it's like, you and my shit repping your shit, right? You in America repping the Caribbean, waving your flag, so and so and so, right? Cool, cute, whatever. Carry your culture on, good for you, right? But you lost because I'm in my shit, repping my shit. How does that make any sense? But that goes back to that point that some of you all have a serious issue with black Americans claiming America because of whatever inferiority complex or whatever you feel, right? And it reminds me of like how Africans be like, oh, it's time for black Americans to come back to Africa and build it up, so and so and so. Whole time they immigrating to America. So you telling me that I should leave America, right? Because of the racism and prejudice and so and so and so. But your ass is coming here. How does that make sense, right? Again, I feel like you all have an issue with black Americans being in whatever position and you want to be in that position instead. That's what it really be coming off as sometimes.